Hi everyone, I'm Mrs. Rasidana in the secondary library, and I am going to be doing a quick video book talk today to give you some suggestions and ideas of some possible books that you might want to be checking out next week before the big April holiday coming up. The first book that I want to talk to you about today is called The Trials of Morrigan Crow. It's the first book in the Nevermore series. This is a fantastic series. I really love it. I've read both of the books that have come out so far. I love both of them. If you like Harry Potter, I really think you're going to enjoy this series. I highly recommend it. It has a female protagonist named Morrigan Crow, but there are also some absolutely fantastic male characters. So we are introduced to Morrigan in the first book. She is a cursed child. She was born on a day called Eventide, which is considered to be the most unlucky day. And a man named Jupiter North appears and rescues Morrigan, takes her to a magical realm called Nevermore. Once they're there, Morrigan realizes that Jupiter is sponsoring her to be a contender for the Wondrous Society. Only the most amazing people get to join this society, and once you join for life. But in order to get a spot, you have to compete in 3 trials, and all of them must be completed successfully, and hundreds of kids are competing for 10 spots in the Wondrous Society. Another interesting facet of this book is it also has this theme of illegal immigration that comes through, because Jupiter kind of sneaks Morrigan into Nevermore. She's not born there. He kind of pulls some strings to get her in, and so she's considered an illegal immigrant. Now, some of the other people in the village, to kind of take that and remind Morrigan that she is an illegal immigrant, they're not really nice to her about it. Some of them call the immigration police, who threaten to deport her. Along the way, she makes some really good friends. She lives in a hotel. Jupiter owns a hotel, and she gets to live there with him, and there's all kinds of very interesting people and other characters who live in the hotel. She makes some really good friends. One of her good friends is a boy named Hawthorne. He is a dragon rider, so he's also competing for a spot in the Wondrous Society. I'm not going to tell you what happens with the trials or if she makes it into the Wondrous Society at the end, but it's a fantastic book. Okay, so the next book that I want to talk to you about is the second book in the, Wondersmith. It's The Calling of Morrigan Crow, and I can't really tell you too much about this book because I'm worried that I'll give away some important plot points from the first book that I don't want to spoil for you, but I will tell you that I just finished reading it and I actually like it better than I liked the first book, and I really like the first book. So Morrigan is still in Nevermore, but she does still have her good friends. She makes some new ones. Some animals and people in Nevermore have started to go missing. So Jupiter North is often gone. He's trying to solve the mystery of what's happening to the characters who've gone missing. So Morrigan's often on her own. She learns some things about herself that are key and important. I can't really say more than that without giving away details, but this book also brings in a social issue. So in the last book, we had this kind of underlying theme of illegal immigration, and in this book, it touches on the social issue of human trafficking. And so I appreciate the fact that these 2 books kind of take this really fantastic narrative, but also try to weave in these current social issues as well in a way that blends really nicely. The next book I want to talk about is called Posted by John David Anderson, and this is a realistic fiction book. It takes place in a middle school, and it's got a couple of different interesting plot threads that go on throughout the book. The main one is that there have been some issues. So the school decides to just ban all mobile phones, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. There's a group of 4 boys. So we've got the main protagonist. His name is Frost, and he's got 3 friends, Dee Dee, Wolf, and Bench. They were 4 boys who didn't really have what they called a tribe. So they didn't have a group of friends. So they all kind of gravitated towards each other and became their own little tribe. So they're very different. They don't have a ton of things in common, but they get along really well. Sticky notes kind of take the place of the mobile phones. And in case you couldn't tell what was going to happen, the bullying continues, but instead of taking place in the cyber world, now it's taking place via sticky notes. Another plot point is that there's a new girl to the school. Her name is Rose, and she's also a bit of an outsider. So one of the boys kind of takes her into their tribe and welcomes her, and not everyone in the group is excited about that. It kind of affects the group a bit negatively. So there's that little interesting dynamic that goes on of what happens when you have a tribe and then you try to bring in another person. I like it because it shows, in my opinion, a fairly realistic portrayal of middle school friendships and middle school relationships. The ending, I also think the ending is pretty realistic. I really like that book. I strongly recommend it. My next book is called The Mighty Odds by Amy Ignatow. This is a really fun book, and it is the first book in a series. The library actually has the second book in the series, which I haven't read yet, but I really want to. As a bonus, in addition to the story, it also has these like fun graphics that kind of illustrate the story as it's going along. So this is about 4 students. They're very different students. They are not friends, and they end up on a bus together during a field trip. And during the ill-fated bus trip home, their bus is struck by lightning, and all 4 of the students end up with superpowers. So they do get superpowers, but they're all a little bit ridiculous. So the first of the 4 is a boy named Nick. He gets a superpower of being able to teleport, but he can only teleport 4 inches to the left. Then we've got Shad. He is in the group, and he gets the power of super strength, but only in his thumbs, nowhere else. Then we have 2 girls in the group. Martina, she is the one who is supposed to be doing all the graphics in the book. They are drawn as if she's writing them like in her journal or her sketchbook. She gets the superpower of just being able to change her eye color. And then we have got Cookie, and Cookie is the super cool popular girl who's not really very nice. She gets the superpower of being able to read people's minds, but she can only read people's minds if they're thinking about directions. So we've got these 4 kids. They get their superpowers. None of them are terribly useful. There is someone who's out to get them. There's also somebody who's presenting a danger to the world. So they have to really come together and work together in order to figure out who's after them and try to basically stop the world from ending. It ends on a cliffhanger because it's a series. So again, we have the second one in the library. I'm hoping to read that soon. I would definitely recommend this. The next book that I want to talk about, I don't have a copy to show you because it's checked out of the library, but I have checked the catalog and I know that there are a few floating around middle school English classes, so you can find it. It's called The Miscalculations of Lightning Girl, and it is a fantastic book. I read about it a few months ago, ended up buying it for my daughter, but I read it and I absolutely loved it. It is about Lucy, who is a 12-year-old girl. When she's young, she is struck by lightning. It's another struck by lightning book, but we appreciate that, so that's fine. She was struck by lightning when she was younger, but it's rewired her brain so she becomes a genius-level mathematician. She's been homeschooled all her life by her grandmother, but she really wants to go to a very prestigious school for gifted children. Her grandmother, though, is a little bit concerned about the fact that Lucy doesn't have any friends or social skills. So her grandmother makes a deal with her and basically says, she'll allow her to go to this prestigious school if she goes to a regular middle school for 1 year for grade 7 and she completes 3 challenges. And the first one is that she has to make a friend. The second one is that she has to join an activity. And the third one is that she has to read a book that is not a maths textbook. None of those things are really anything that Lucy is particularly interested in, and she has a little bit of OCD, so they're not things that are particularly easy for her, but she really wants to go to this school, so she agrees to it. She has a little bit of trouble fitting in until she is in a class where she's assigned to a group project where they have to do a service project together. So she finds a group with 2 other kids, Wendy and Levi, and they end up working on a project with a local animal rescue shelter. The next book we have is Melissa Keel. Ooh, that's not cool. The Secret Science of Magic. It's an Australian book. It takes place in Melbourne, and it's about 2 12th grade students named Sophia and Joshua. Sophia is a genius. She is just very, very smart, but she has pretty much debilitating social anxiety. She has really no interaction with anybody except for her best friend, Elsie. And Elsie is dreaming of going to university in the United States. Sophia has some issues understanding other people's emotions in terms of just being able to read people's feelings and gauge their reactions. And that leads her to have some issues with her relationships with other people throughout the book. Sophia is obsessed with 2 things. She's obsessed with a Russian mathematician, and she is obsessed with Doctor Who. And then you have Joshua. And Joshua is very different than Sophia. He has very little interest in school. He is being a bit pressured by his dad because his dad really wants him to get into a good university. So he's a little bit torn on that. His main obsession is magic. Joshua loves magic. He works in a magic store. He is also obsessed with Sophia. He's had a crush on her since they were in grade 7. And so finally, the 2 of them meet and they get together. What I really liked about the book was, Sophia's obviously got a couple of conditions that could make a relationship challenging, but Joshua really has a willingness to understand her and kind of figure out how he fits into her life. He just tries to understand where she's coming from and just sort of say, well, okay, so how do I fit into this? The next book I want to talk about is called Wish by Barbara O'Connor. Again, I don't have a copy of it because it's checked out, but I do know that it is in a lot of the English classrooms again, so tracking down a copy should not be very difficult. It is about a girl named Charlie. She's 11 years old, and she starts off the book living in the city, but she's got some issues going on in her life. Her father's in prison. Her mother she's got depression quite severely. So she goes to her aunt who lives in the Blue Ridge Mountains in a small town, and Charlie's really not happy about that. She's a little bit extra upset because her older sister is finishing high school, so she's allowed to stay in the city and live with a friend, and Charlie thinks that that's not fair. She also has made the same wish every day since she was in 4th grade, hoping that one day it's going to come true. I'm not going to tell you what the wish is. You're going to have to read the book to figure that out. One day she's coming home on the school bus and she sees a stray dog, and she's having trouble adjusting to the school and fitting in with the kids in her new environment. So she kind of focuses on this dog and decides that she wants to befriend him and make him her pet. A really interesting story about Charlie meeting new people and making some friends and kind of figuring out where she belongs. And the writing is just amazing in terms of descriptive writing. It's got some really good themes about family and family dynamics and, just trying to figure out your place in the world and where you belong and what you need to make yourself happy. Next book that we have to talk about is The Call. It's an Irish book. Again, I don't have a copy of it to show you because they're both checked out, but they're checked out to teachers. And so I have been informed that those books will be returned next week. So if you think that this is a book that you'd like to read, hopefully you'll be able to get your hands on a copy. It is a really interesting book. It takes place in Ireland in this dystopian future after there's been a war between the Irish people and the fairies, who are called the She. And the fairies, are pretty evil. Um, and the Irish win, and they banish the fairies into the underworld, which are called the Greylands. And the She are not happy about that at all. So they decide to take their revenge on the Irish people in a couple of different ways. The first is that they have completely cut Ireland off from the rest of the world. So they've got no technology, they've got no communication with the rest of the world. There is absolutely no travel in and out. Then they take their revenge on the children. So it's a little bit like Hunger Games, except that instead of, two people from every district getting called, every Irish child between the ages of, I think, 10 and 17 get the call. The call is when, out of nowhere, no warning, you just disappear. Sent down to the Greylands for 3 human minutes, but 3 human minutes is actually the span of 24 hours in the Greylands. If you manage to stay alive, then you get sent back. And only 1 in, I think, 100 children actually survive the call. So it's gotten to the point where children just basically are raised to try to survive this call. The protagonist is a girl named Nessa. She's really unique because her legs have been disabled by polio. So she needs assistance with walking. And, in any other society, that wouldn't really be a huge hindrance for her. But when she's got to go and survive this call in the Grey Worlds, nobody thinks she's going to make it. And it's got a lot of really fascinating Irish folklore mixed in. So I actually learned quite a bit that I didn't know about Irish folk stories, and that was fascinating for me. If you're into like the Hunger Games, you'd probably really like this book. So I'm hoping that somebody will read this and let me know what you think. The books that are coming from the middle school fiction collection in this book talk, you can find on this display up in the middle school section over in the corner by the windows. The books that are coming from the high school fiction collection, I have put downstairs on the first floor of the library on one of these book displays. And these book displays, I just want to let you know, if you're not aware of them, about once a month, sometimes twice a month, depending on how much time I have. But at least once a month, I swap out the books, and I really go through both the middle school and high school fiction collections. Some of them are new arrivals. Some of them I just go through the collections and try to pick out books that I want to highlight because I think they would actually be really interesting to a variety of students. So if you have been in the library but have walked past these displays, or if you're somebody who doesn't necessarily come to the library on a regular basis, I would love to just invite you to pop in and just take a look at the books on these 2 display tables, read the blurbs. I really think if you do, you'll be able to find something that sounds interesting to you. So please, by all means, come on in and check them out.